Denise Caro was 33 years old when her boyfriend's phone lit up on the kitchen counter with a voicemail she was never meant to see. 3 years together. Talk of moving in. A birthday dinner she was planning for his mother, down to the centerpieces. Then the transcript loaded. His mother's voice, calm and certain. "You could do better, baby. Renata already asked about you twice. Denise is convenient. Not right." Trevor didn't deny it when she read it back to him. He just said she was overreacting. What he didn't know was that Denise had spent 3 years reading fine print for a living, finding the sentence everyone else skimmed past, the number that didn't add up. He expected tears. He expected begging. Instead, Denise walked to the closet and pulled down a suitcase, folding with a precision that made him go completely still. Trevor had no idea this wasn't the end of something. It was the first move. Before we go any further, I wrote a book for anyone whose trust has been broken by a cheating partner, a betrayal from someone close, or a wound that's still healing. If that's you, it's here. I'll put the link below this video. The guest list had 12 names on it. Denise Caro counted them again, tapping her pen against the yellow legal pad like she always did when something felt slightly off. 12 names, 2 tables, 1 birthday dinner for a woman who had never once asked Denise how her day was going. She drew a small box next to each name anyway, checked the box, moved on. That was the job. At Meridian Insurance, Denise was the senior claims auditor who caught what everyone else missed. The billing code transposed by a single digit, the policy date that didn't quite line up with the incident report, the signature that looked just a little too clean. She had built her reputation one quiet correction at a time, and she carried that same steadiness into everything else she did. Dinner reservations confirmed 24 hours in advance, bills split and logged in a shared spreadsheet, nothing left to chance. "You've got the Garcias listed twice," Trevor said from across the table, not looking up from his laptop. Denise glanced at the pad. He was right. She crossed out the duplicate with one clean line. "Good catch," she said. Trevor smiled without lifting his eyes from the screen. It was a comfortable smile, the kind that came from 3 years of knowing someone's rhythms. He reached across the table and stole a grate from the bowl near her elbow, and she didn't say a word, because she had already counted on him doing exactly that. That was them. Easy. Settled. The kind of settled that felt earned. They had met at a mutual friend's housewarming, argued pleasantly about whether the guacamole needed more lime, and exchanged numbers before the night was over. 3 years later, they shared a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment in the Riverside district, split every utility bill down the middle in a spreadsheet Trevor had actually designed himself, and had been circling the idea of combining finances the same way 2 people circle a diving board, each one waiting for the other to jump first. Denise had no problem jumping. She just wanted to be sure of the water first. The birthday dinner was part of that. A gesture, an attempt to smooth the particular kind of tension that had settled between her and Patrice Wills the way humidity settles before a storm. Quietly, completely, until everything felt just a little bit heavier. Patrice had never been outright rude. That wasn't her style. She was the kind of woman who delivered cruelty wrapped in concern, tied off with a bright smile. Denise works in insurance? How practical. Trevor always did attract the sensible ones. Said at Easter, with a slight tilt of the head, like she was complimenting a good pair of shoes. She keeps her hair so natural. Bold choice. Said at Christmas, as if Denise's locks were a dare. Trevor always mentioned these things later, usually in a tone that suggested they were funny, or small, or worth dismissing entirely.
"You know how she is," he'd say, with a small shrug that meant, "Please don't make this a thing." And Denise, who had been underestimated by people far more creative than Patrice Wills, never did. She had learned early in her career that the loudest response to a person who doubts you is a result they cannot argue with. Patrice thought she was practical. Fine. Denise would plan the most beautiful, seamless birthday dinner the woman had ever attended. She would arrange it the same way she handled a flagged audit, methodically, without emotion, and better than anyone expected. She drew a clean line under the final name on the list. Trevor closed his laptop and stretched, the back of his chair creaking.
He stood, carried his coffee mug to the sink, and set his phone face down on the counter in one fluid motion, the same way he had been doing for the past few weeks. Denise didn't look up. She had noticed. Of course she had noticed. Trevor had always been the kind of person who left his phone screen up, charging in the middle of the counter, indifferent to who walked past. But lately he set it face down before he even put it down. Lately he angled away from her when a call came in, stepping toward the hallway, voice dropping into something low and reassuring. She had filed it away. Not ignored. Filed. There was a difference. Ignoring something meant deciding it didn't matter. Filing it meant waiting for more information before drawing a conclusion. She was always waiting for more information. Trevor came back to the table, pressed a kiss to the top of her head, and said he was going to grab a shower before dinner. She nodded. She heard his footsteps disappear down the hall. She heard the bathroom door close. The apartment was quiet. She stood to refill her water glass, passing the counter, and then Trevor's phone lit up. She wasn't looking for it. She wasn't reaching for it. But the screen flared white in the low evening light, and the voicemail transcript previewed in 2 clean lines below his mother's name before Denise could look away. "You could do better, baby. Renata already asked about you twice." Denise didn't move. The phone glowed on the counter. The preview sat there in clean gray text, patient as a billing statement. "You could do better, baby. Renata already asked about you twice." Her water glass was still in her hand. She set it down carefully, without sound, the way she set down a flagged file before she opened it. She picked up the phone. She wasn't proud of it, but she picked it up. The voicemail transcript was fully visible. Trevor's notifications had no lock. The whole message was right there, expanded and time-stamped, as clear as anything she had ever read across a conference table. "You could do better, baby. Renata already asked about you twice. I told her you were... well, you know how I feel. Denise is convenient, baby. She's not right for you. You deserve a woman who opens doors, not one who just holds things together. Call me back." Denise read it once. Then she read it again. Not because she had missed anything. She hadn't missed a single word. She read it again because she was an auditor, and auditors confirmed before they concluded. The timestamp was 4 days ago. Thursday. She had made Trevor dinner on Thursday. She had laughed with him on Thursday. She had fallen asleep next to him on Thursday night, completely unaware that somewhere across town his mother was leaving a voicemail describing her as convenient, the way you describe a parking spot or a pharmacy that stays open late. The shower cut off down the hall. She set the phone back on the counter, face up this time. She stood where she was. She heard the bathroom door open, his footsteps on the hard wood. Then Trevor came around the corner into the kitchen, hair damp, towel around his shoulders, and he saw her face first before he saw the phone. Then he saw the phone. Something moved behind his eyes. Not surprise. Not quite. It was the look of a man who had been waiting for a particular piece of mail and had finally heard it drop through the slot. Resignation, dressed up as innocence. "Hey," he said. 4 days ago, Denise said. He looked at the counter. He looked back at her. He didn't ask what she meant. She picked up the phone and read it to him. All of it. Every word. Her voice was level. She read it the way she read policy language at work, clearly, without performance, so that no one in the room could claim they hadn't understood. Convenient, not right. When she finished, she set the phone down again. Trevor ran a hand across the back of his neck. "Denise, don't," she said. "Don't start with my name. She's just... that's how she talks." He leaned against the counter, arms crossing, the way they did when he was about to explain something he didn't actually want to explain. "She's opinionated. You know that already. That doesn't mean She named someone." He went quiet. "She named a specific person from your office." Denise kept her voice flat, factual. "She said Renata asked about you twice. She said you deserve better." She paused. And you've heard her say things like this before. It wasn't a question. His face answered it anyway, the slight tightening around his eyes, the way he didn't say no. You're overreacting, he said instead. There it was. Denise had heard "you're overreacting" 100 times in her life. From supervisors who didn't think she'd actually find the discrepancy. From colleagues who assumed her notes were overcautious. From people who had mistaken her steadiness for flexibility, her patience for permission. She looked at him for a long moment. He looked back at her, and she could see him deciding that the silence was a good sign. That quiet meant she was softening, that she would fold the way she always had, tuck the thing away, and get back to the guest list with 12 names on it. Say something, he said. His voice had an edge of impatience now, like she was the one being difficult. She didn't say anything. She walked to the bedroom. The closet was on her side. It always had been, a small joke between them since move-in day. She reached up to the top shelf, both hands, and pulled down the large suitcase. It landed on the bed with a flat, final sound. She unzipped it, laid it open. She went to her dresser and began pulling clothes out in small, even stacks. Not frantic, not shaking. The same hands that organized 12-name guest lists and flagged 100-page audits. The same hands that had made dinner 4 days ago for a man who had read this voicemail and gone to bed without a word. She folded a shirt, set it down, reached for another. Behind her, she heard Trevor's footsteps stop in the doorway. She didn't turn around. She could feel him standing there. She could feel the exact moment he understood that this was not a threat. That she was not packing to make a point. She was just packing. She reached for another shirt. He said nothing. Trevor found his voice somewhere around the 3rd minute. Denise, come on. She pulled a pair of jeans from the shelf and folded them in half, then in half again. It was just a voicemail. She's my mother. She says things. Denise set the jeans down flat in the suitcase. She doesn't always think before she talks, you know that. That doesn't mean anything is actually happening. She went to the bathroom, came back with her toiletry bag, set it in the corner of the case. Trevor shifted in the doorway. She heard him exhale, long and unsteady. I just don't think you need to. I mean, where are you even going to go? She opened her underwear drawer. Denise, talk to me. She didn't. There was nothing to say that the suitcase wasn't already saying for her. She had been talking to him for 3 years. She had made dinner on Thursday. She had spent a Sunday afternoon writing down 12 names on a guest list for a woman who had called her convenient 4 days ago, and apparently thought that was a fine thing to say to her son about the woman he shared a life with. She was done talking. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She glanced at the screen. Yolanda. She picked it up and answered. Hey. Yolanda's voice was bright, moving fast the way it always did. Okay, so I need to know if we're doing assigned seating for this dinner because I cannot be next to Patricia from Trevor's cousin's side again. That woman does not stop talking about her renovation. Yo, Denise said. A pause. Short, but Yolanda caught it the way she always did. What happened? It wasn't a question. Denise sat down on the edge of the bed, next to the open suitcase. She looked at the folded jeans. She told Yolanda. All of it. The voicemail preview on the lock screen, the timestamp, the transcript, word for word, because she still had every line memorized. Trevor in the doorway, the suitcase. When she finished, Yolanda was quiet. That was how Denise knew it was bad. Yolanda Baptiste was not a quiet woman. She had opinions about traffic. She had opinions about font choices on legal documents. Silence from Yolanda meant she was either very angry or very careful. And right now, Denise couldn't tell which. Yo. I'm here. Another beat. Then, slowly. Denise, I need to tell you something. Something in her voice made Denise go still. Patrice called me last month. Said she was having a small thing at her house, a Sunday, just family and a few close people, she said. Yolanda's words came out measured, like she was choosing each one. I couldn't go. I had a closing that ran long. I figured it was just… I don't know. I assumed you couldn't make it either. I thought maybe you had told her it was fine to include me. A pause. You never mentioned it, so I let it go. I didn't want to bring up something I thought you already knew about. Denise didn't move. You didn't know, Yolanda said. It wasn't a question. No, Denise said. I didn't know. The room was very quiet. Behind her, she heard Trevor shift his weight in the doorway. She turned and looked at him. His expression did something complicated. It wasn't guilt, exactly. It was the look of a man watching a door close that he had told himself would stay open. Was Renata at that gathering? Denise asked him. He didn't answer fast enough. Trevor. I wasn't there, he said. I didn't… My mom does things sometimes. I can't control… Was Renata there? The silence was its own answer. Denise stood up. She turned back to the suitcase. She thought about the dinner she had been planning. 12 names, seating arrangements, the restaurant deposit she had already put on her card. Weeks of effort, handed freely, toward a woman who had been running a separate operation the entire time, gathering people, seating introductions, arranging the same table she was planning from the outside in. Yolanda, she said. I'll call you back. Denise. I'm fine. I'll call you back. She ended the call. She set the phone down. She zipped the suitcase, one long pull, clean and final, the zipper running from corner to corner without stopping. She lifted it off the bed. Denise, wait! Trevor stepped into the room now, finally, like the closing zipper had broken something loose in him. Just… wait. We can talk about this. You don't have to leave tonight. She looked at him, steady. No tears, no heat. I'm not staying tonight, she said. She carried the suitcase to the front door. She set it upright and pulled out her phone and scrolled to a name in her contacts. Isaiah answered on the second ring. Hey, she said. Her voice was even. I need to ask a favor. Your guest room, is it open? Yeah, he said. No questions. Come down whenever. She hung up. She put on her coat. She picked up the suitcase. Trevor was still standing in the hallway behind her, watching her the way you watch something you assumed was permanent reveal that it was never permanent at all. She opened the front door. She walked out. The guest room was small, clean, but small. A bed with a gray quilt, a window that faced the alley, a wooden nightstand with a lamp that gave off warm yellow light. Denise had slept better than she expected. She was sitting up against the headboard now, legs crossed, laptop open, phone in her hand. The morning light came through the blinds in thin lines across the quilt. She could hear Isaiah in the kitchen, the low hiss of the coffee maker, a cabinet opening and closing. He hadn't asked her anything when she knocked on his door the night before, just looked at her suitcase, nodded, and showed her the room. That was the thing about Isaiah. He didn't fill silence with noise just to make himself comfortable. She pulled up the shared cloud photo album on her phone. It was something she and Trevor had set up in the first year, a place to drop pictures. His cousin's wedding, a camping trip, a Sunday at the farmer's market where they had bought too many peaches and laughed about it the whole drive home. She had not opened it in months. She was not looking for photos. The album had a group chat attached to it, a family thread. Trevor had added her early on, back when things felt like they were building toward something real. She had forgotten she was still in it. She scrolled up. The first thing she noticed was her own name. Patrice. She's sweet enough, but that's not the point. Trevor needs someone who matches where he's going, not where he's been. Denise read it again, then once more. She scrolled further. Patrice. I'm telling you all, this one won't last. She's convenient for him right now. He's comfortable. That's all it is. The message was from 14 months ago. 14 months. Denise had been bringing Patrice flowers on Mother's Day 14 months ago. She had given her a candle she ordered specially because Patrice once mentioned liking a particular scent. She had done that. She kept scrolling. There was a reply from someone named Aunt Carol. "Give the girl a chance, Patrice." And then Patrice, right underneath, "I'm giving her exactly as much chance as she deserves," which is to say, I'm being patient. Denise exhaled through her nose. She scrolled further and the messages got more specific. Patrice, 2 months after that, mentioning Renata by name. She's smart, she's put together, and she actually fits his world. I've already told her to make herself available. Then later, I'm seating them together at Thanksgiving. Neither of them needs to know it's intentional. Denise stopped. Thanksgiving was 6 weeks away. She was going to be at that Thanksgiving dinner. She had already told Trevor she would be there. She had already asked Yolanda what to bring. She set the phone face down on the quilt for a moment. She pressed both palms flat against her thighs and looked at the window. Then she picked the phone back up. She scrolled to an older thread, much older, something that had come up in the chat as a reference, a message Patrice had sent to what looked like a sister or close cousin. "You know how it was with Raymond. I will not watch my son repeat that. I refuse." Denise did not know who Raymond was, but she had been doing this job long enough to know how to follow a thread. 3 messages down, the same cousin wrote back, "Patrice, what happened with you and Raymond was not Trevor's fault, and Denise is not whoever she was. And Patrice, she left me for someone polished, and I looked like a fool in front of everyone I knew. I know what that looks like from the outside. I know what people say." Denise read it twice. There it was. Not cruelty for its own sake. Something older than that. Something that had curdled over years in the dark. Patrice's husband had left her for someone she considered more refined, more impressive, and Patrice had never once let it become a wound she healed. She had turned it into a blueprint. She had rebuilt her entire understanding of worth around it, and then she had aimed it, carefully, deliberately, at the woman her son had chosen to love. Denise heard footsteps in the hallway. Isaiah appeared in the doorway holding 2 mugs. He raised one slightly in her direction. She nodded. He came in and set it on the nightstand, then leaned against the door frame with his own, unhurried. "You find something?" he asked. "I found a lot of things." She looked at the phone. "She's been telling the whole family I wouldn't last. For over a year. She's been planning to put Renata at the same table as Trevor at Thanksgiving." She scrolled back up to one message and read it aloud, flat and even. "She's convenient for him right now. He's comfortable. That's all it is." Isaiah was quiet for a moment. He took a sip of his coffee. "A year," he said. "At least." She opened her screenshots folder. She started at the top of the chat and worked her way down, methodically, the way she would with a case file. Screenshot, scroll, screenshot. Every message with a date and Patrice's name attached to it. When she was done, she closed the album. She looked at Isaiah. "This isn't about one voicemail," she said. "She's been running this thing for over a year. This was never an accident." The kitchen table was small enough that her laptop and her coffee mug took up most of it. Denise didn't mind. She had worked in tighter spaces. It was early afternoon now. Isaiah had gone out to a job site around 10, told her to help herself to whatever was in the fridge, and left without making it a moment. She appreciated that more than she could have explained. She opened her laptop. She was not a woman who left loose ends, never had been. It was the same thing that made her good at her job, the ability to sit with a pile of documents and find the one number that didn't belong, the one signature that came 3 days after it should have. Patterns, gaps, the thing that almost looked right but didn't. She had spent 3 years building a life with Trevor Wills. That life had paperwork. She started where she always started, the beginning. The car loan came up on the second search. She stared at the screen. 2 years ago, Trevor had needed a vehicle. His credit score at the time wasn't where it needed to be to get a good rate on his own. Denise had co-signed. Her name, her credit history, her signature at the bottom of the page. They had agreed, both of them, out loud at the kitchen table of the apartment she had furnished, that he would refinance it into his name alone once his credit improved. He had never done it. She clicked through the lender's portal. Her login still worked. She pulled up the account summary. Current balance, payment history, account holder information. Her name was still listed, right beside his, clean as the day she'd signed. She leaned back in the chair. She thought about that day at the dealership, how Trevor had thanked her on the way home, said it meant a lot, said he'd handle the refinance within the year. She had believed him without question because that was the kind of woman she was, the practical one, the one who helped and trusted and assumed good faith. She kept going. The joint savings account was easier to find than she expected. They had opened it in the second year, meant to be a shared vacation fund, a weekend trip to New Orleans that never happened. She had added money a few times, Trevor had added money a few times, and then both of them had seemed to forget it existed, except she still had full access. She logged in. The balance was not large, but it was there. Real money. Money she had put in with her own hands. She wrote down the number. Then she pulled up the folder on her desktop where she kept her own financial records. Old lease agreements, bank statements, the move-in documents from 3 years ago when she and Trevor had started talking seriously about their future. The apartment deposit? She found the transfer record in under a minute. One payment from her account in her name to the landlord. No joint account. No contribution from Trevor. Just her. She had not thought of it as leverage at the time. She had thought of it as being the one who showed up. She called Yolanda. Yolanda picked up on the second ring. "Tell me you're eating," Yolanda said. "I'm working." "That's what I thought." A pause. "What did you find?" Denise laid it out. The car loan, still in both names, the savings account, still accessible, the deposit, solely hers. She read the numbers flat and clean, the way she would read a case summary to a colleague. No dramatics, just facts. Yolanda was quiet for a moment. Then, "Okay, the loan first. You're still a cosigner, which means if he misses a payment, it hits your credit. You have the right to request removal from the loan, but the lender can require the remaining balance to be refinanced or paid off. Meaning he'd have to come up with the money. Meaning the whole balance becomes due if the refinance doesn't go through. And if his credit still isn't where it needs to be..." Yolanda let the sentence land on its own. Denise wrote it down. "The deposit is clean," Yolanda continued. "It's your name, your money. You have no liability tied to that apartment. If anything, you have a claim. And the savings account? You have full access. Use it wisely. Not all at once, not out of anger, but it's yours to move." Denise thanked her and was about to hang up when Yolanda said, "Wait, there's something else." She heard Yolanda hesitate, which was not something Yolanda did often. "Keisha from Trevor's office texted me this morning. She wasn't sure whether to say anything, but..." Another pause. "She said Trevor's been saving. Quietly. More than his usual. The timing is strange." Denise frowned. "Strange how?" "Strange like it lines up with Renata's promotion announcement, the one that just came through at his company last week." The room went very still. Denise looked down at her notes. The numbers, the dates, the year-long campaign in the group chat, Patrice's voice on a voicemail, casual as anything. Renata already asked about him twice. She thought about the savings account Trevor had forgotten she could see. She thought about what a man saves up for, quietly, right after a woman at his job gets promoted. He had never once talked to Denise about a ring. She picked up her phone. She needed to know exactly how much Renata already knew. Keisha Drummond was careful by nature. She had worked at the same company for 6 years, kept her head down, and minded her business, mostly. But she had texted Yolanda because something had been sitting wrong with her for weeks, and she was not the kind of person who could let a wrong thing sit forever. Denise knew that about her. She had met Keisha twice. A company picnic. A rooftop birthday party for someone she barely remembered. They weren't close. But Keisha had a conscience, and right now, that was enough. Denise typed carefully. "Hey Keisha, I know Yolanda mentioned she heard from you. I just want to understand the situation better. Anything you're comfortable sharing, I'd appreciate it. No pressure either way." She set the phone down and went to pour herself more coffee. The reply came in 4 minutes. "Can I call you?" Denise looked at the message. "Yes." The phone rang almost immediately, as if Keisha had been holding it. "I want to say first," Keisha began, "that I don't like being in the middle of things." "I understand," Denise said. "I'm not asking you to be." A breath on the other end. "Okay." Another pause. "Renata knows about you." Not vaguely. She knows your name. She knows you and Trevor live together. She knows you're real and current. This isn't like she thought he was single and got blindsided. She knew from the beginning. Denise said nothing. She stood at Isaiah's kitchen counter and kept her face still. She told people at the office that Trevor was basically already available. Keisha continued, her voice dropping slightly, like she was aware of where she was sitting. That whatever he had going at home was basically already over, and she wasn't going to feel guilty about something that was already done. Basically already over, Denise repeated. Her words. I heard it myself. Keisha sounded uncomfortable. I didn't think much of it at first, office talk, but then it kept going. Lunch together a few times, the way he'd show up at her desk, and Patrice, Trevor's mom. She came in once for a thing with one of the executives up top, Mr. Hale. She apparently knows him personally, has for years. Denise's pen stopped moving. How well does she know him? Denise asked. Well enough that he came out of his office to say hello. Well enough that they had a whole conversation in the hallway for 20 minutes. Keisha paused. Renata's promotion came through about 3 weeks after that visit. Denise wrote it down. Patrice. Hale. Renata's promotion. Timeline. I'm not saying it's connected, Keisha said carefully. I don't know that it is, but the timing. I hear you, Denise said. Thank you, Keisha. I mean that. After she hung up, she stood at the counter for a long moment. She had expected to feel something hot when the full picture came together. Rage, maybe, the kind that rises in the throat. But what she felt was different, cooler than that, quieter. Trevor had been careless and weak. Patrice had been calculating and cruel, but at least her motive was something Denise could trace. A wounded woman who had never healed, twisting that wound into a campaign. Both of them had history with her, a context, a relationship. Renata had none of that. Renata had simply looked at someone's life, a real woman with a real name, someone who co-signed a loan and planned birthday dinners and put her own savings down on an apartment, and decided that it was already over. Decided, comfortably, from a distance, that her own ambition was more important than whatever damage got done on the way. She didn't know Denise. She didn't need to. She had decided anyway. That landed in a place the voicemail hadn't reached. Denise sat back down at the table. She picked up her pen. She was still writing when Isaiah came through the door around 4, work boots dusty, a paper bag from the deli around the corner in his hand. He set it on the counter without comment, looked at the spread of notes and printed pages in front of her, and sat down across from her. You eat anything today? He asked. A little. He pushed the bag toward her. She pulled out a sandwich without looking up from her notes. You all right? He asked. I'm building something, she said. He nodded like that was a complete answer. For a moment he was quiet, watching her without pressure, the way he always did. Then he said, almost to himself, You've been doing this your whole career, finding the thing that doesn't line up, the number that's off. Yeah. You don't have to yell to be heard. He said it simply, no drama, no performance. You just have to be in the right room with the right paper. Denise looked up at him. Then she looked back down at the table, the voicemail transcript, the group chat screenshots, the loan documents, the deposit records, Keisha's account of what Renata had said, and when, and to whom. The timeline connecting Patrice's visit to the office with Renata's promotion 3 weeks later. Each piece was real. Each piece was documented. Each piece was hers. She pulled a blank sheet of paper from the bottom of the stack. She wrote a single word at the top. Plan. Then she started writing. Trevor called on a Tuesday afternoon. Denise was sitting at Isaiah's kitchen table, sorting loan documents into a neat stack, when his name lit up her screen. She looked at it for 2 full rings. Then she answered. Hey. His voice was careful, soft around the edges in the way it got when he wanted something. Hey, she said. I've been thinking a lot. A pause. About everything. And I don't want to leave things like this. I want to do this right. Sit down, talk it through properly. Another pause, longer. I was thinking dinner, Friday. You, me, and my mom. Somewhere nice, so I can apologize the right way. In front of her. Denise leaned back in her chair. She could hear what he wasn't saying. He thought her silence meant she was softening. He thought the days without a confrontation meant she was finding her way back. He had looked at her quiet and read it as surrender. 3 years, and he still didn't know the difference between a woman who had nothing left to say and a woman who was done talking until the moment was right. Sure, she said. A small beat. He hadn't expected agreement that fast. Yeah? Friday works. Text me the restaurant. Okay. He sounded relieved in a way that made her jaw tighten briefly. Okay, good. I'll handle the reservation. Somewhere nice, I promise. Sounds fine, Trevor. After she hung up, she sat still for a moment. The relief in his voice replayed in her head. He thought he was managing the situation. He thought he had called at the right time and said the right things, and now the pieces were moving back into the shape he wanted. She picked up her pen and wrote Friday at the top of a clean page. Then she got to work. The voicemail transcript was already printed and labeled. Timestamp, date, source. She had formatted it the way she formatted audit reports at work. Clean margins, clear headers, no clutter. The group chat screenshots came next. She arranged them in chronological order, 11 months of messages, each one dated, each one showing Patrice's name clearly at the top. The bet about how long Denise would last, the Thanksgiving seating plan, the message to a cousin saying that Trevor would come to his senses once he spent enough time around the right kind of woman. She stacked them, paper-clipped the set, and set them aside. The loan documents took a little longer. She called Yolanda while she worked. If I file the removal Wednesday, Denise said, when does the balance come due? Technically, the lender has to notify him first, Yolanda said. But given the loan terms and the cosigner clause you both signed, once you file, he's looking at 30 days. And he does not have 30 days worth of savings sitting around, based on what you told me. He doesn't, Denise confirmed. Then the car either goes back or he figures it out fast. Yolanda's voice was matter-of-fact. You're not doing anything wrong, Denise. You're removing yourself from a financial obligation that was supposed to be temporary 2 years ago. He had the time to fix it. He didn't. I know, Denise said. I just want to file after Friday, not before. Why after? Because I want him sitting at that table thinking everything is still negotiable. A short silence. Then Yolanda said, I'll have the paperwork ready Thursday night. You sign, I file Saturday morning. Perfect. She set the loan documents in their own stack. Then she opened her laptop. The message to Renata took 3 drafts. The first was too long. The second had 1 sentence she crossed out because it sounded like pleading, and she refused to plead. The third was 6 sentences. She read it 4 times before she sent it. Renata, I'm Denise Caro. I think you know who I am. There is a dinner Friday evening at which several things will be discussed, including the circumstances around your recent promotion and Patrice Will's relationship with Mr. Hale. I will be raising those questions at that dinner. If you'd like the opportunity to speak to your own choices directly, rather than have them characterized by someone else, I'd suggest you attend. The address is below, 7 p.m. She hit send and closed the laptop. She wasn't angry when she wrote it. She wasn't performing calm either. It was simply the most efficient path. Renata had made a calculated choice. She understood the language of calculation. The reply came in just under 2 hours. I'll be there. 3 words. No pushback, no questions. Denise looked at the message for a moment, then set her phone face down on the table. Thursday night, she laid everything out. Isaiah had cleared the kitchen table without being asked, moving his work folders to the side counter to make room. She arranged the stacks in order: voicemail transcript, group chat screenshots, loan documents, and her own handwritten notes on the Patrice Hale Renata timeline. Each stack was labeled. Each page was numbered. She stood back and looked at it. Then she called Yolanda. You have everything? Yolanda asked. Everything, Denise said. And they'll all be there? Trevor, Patrice, Renata? Denise looked at the table. at the clean stacks of paper that told the whole story, document by document, in order. "All 3, she said. 7 o'clock tomorrow." The restaurant Trevor picked was the kind of place designed to feel important. Dark wood paneling, low lighting, cloth napkins folded into neat triangles. The kind of place where people came to celebrate things, or to soften bad news with good presentation. Denise arrived at 6:55. She wore a deep green dress she had bought for herself 2 Christmases ago and rarely had occasion to use. Her hair was out, natural, full. She carried a slim leather folder under one arm, the kind she used for client presentations at work. She had not dressed for Trevor. She had not dressed for Patrice. She had dressed the way she dressed when she walked into a room and needed to be the most prepared person in it. The hostess led her to a round table near the back. Trevor was already there, his tie a little too tight, his smile a little too ready. Patrice sat to his left, pearl earrings, ivory blazer, the posture of a woman who had rehearsed her own performance just as carefully. And across from Trevor, seated quietly, was Renata Fields. Denise had never seen her in person before. Renata was younger than she expected, composed the way people were composed when they were working very hard not to look nervous. "Denise," Trevor stood, pulled out her chair. "You look great." "Thank you," she said, and sat down. "Denise, sweetheart." Patrice smiled from across the table, warm and polished as a painted surface. "I'm so glad you came. I really think tonight will be good for everyone." "I think so too," Denise said pleasantly. No one introduced Renata. Denise did not ask. They ordered. Trevor talked too much about the menu. Patrice made a comment about the bread being just like the kind from that little place in Charleston. Renata kept her eyes on her water glass. And then, after the appetizers arrived and the waiter stepped away, Trevor cleared his throat. "So," he folded his hands on the table. Denise recognized the posture. It was the one he used in work presentations. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry, Denise. Genuinely. I handled this badly. My mom expressed an opinion. The wrong opinion, I know that. And I should have shut it down right away. I didn't. That's on me." He paused. "But I think we can agree that one voicemail, taken out of context, doesn't have to be the end of 3 years. He sat back slightly, satisfied, like a man who had said the hardest part and was now waiting for the room to confirm it landed well. Patrice opened her mouth. Denise spoke first. "I appreciate that," she said. Her voice was level, unhurried. "I do. But I want to make sure everyone at this table is working from the same set of facts." She opened the leather folder. "So let's start with the voicemail." She placed her phone on the table and pressed play. Patrice's voice filled the small space between them, tinny but perfectly clear. "You could do better, baby. Renata already asked about you twice. Denise is convenient, not right." No one spoke. Denise turned the phone face down. "That was sent 14 days ago." She slid the first sheet of paper from the folder, the printed transcript, clean margins, labeled header. She set it in the center of the table. "Now, the group chat." She laid out the screenshots one by one, like cards dealt from a careful hand. She named each one as she placed it. October 9th. "Patrice tells your aunt Denise won't last through the year." She set it down. November 2nd. "Seating chart for Thanksgiving. Renata is placed next to Trevor. I'm not mentioned." Another sheet. November 18th. "Patrice tells your cousin Malcolm that Trevor will come to his senses once he spends more time around the right kind of woman." She set that one down too. That's 11 months of messages. I have all of them. The table was absolutely silent. Trevor's face had gone the color of old chalk. One of his cousins, seated 2 chairs down at the larger table they'd been folded into at Patrice's request, had stopped chewing entirely. Patrice's smile was still on her face, but it had stopped reaching her eyes about 30 seconds ago. Denise reached back into the folder. "The car loan." She slid the document across to Trevor directly. "You were supposed to refinance this 2 years ago. You didn't. I filed to remove myself as cosigner yesterday morning." She watched him look down at the paper. "The full balance is now due in your name alone. Yolanda handled the paperwork. It's already filed." Trevor's mouth opened, closed. "Trevor," Patrice started. Denise turned to Renata, not with heat, not with cruelty, with the same clean precision she had used for every item on the table. "You knew about me," Denise said. "Not a rumor, not a guess. You knew my name. You knew we lived together, and you chose to participate anyway. You told coworkers this was basically already over. I'm not asking you to defend that. I'm asking you to confirm it. Here, in front of everyone." The silence stretched. Renata looked at the table. Then she looked up. "Yes," she said quietly. "I knew." The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. The ripple moved outward. Around the table, faces shifted. The cousin, an aunt, a family friend Patrice had invited specifically to witness the reconciliation. They had all heard it. Patrice's ivory composure cracked. Her chin lifted sharply, then fell. Her eyes moved to her son. Trevor was staring at Renata. Renata was staring at the tablecloth. And around them, the family Patrice had carefully assembled as an audience was now an audience to something else entirely. Denise closed the leather folder. She picked up her clutch. She set her napkin on the table beside her untouched bread plate with the same quiet care she had used to stack every document in Isaiah's kitchen the night before. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "I appreciate everyone's honesty tonight." She stood, pushed her chair back neatly, and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. The news came in pieces. That was how it always worked, Denise had learned. Not in one clean wave, but in small, steady reports. A text here, a phone call there, a forwarded screenshot that arrived without comment because none was needed. Yolanda called first, 3 days after the dinner. "Trevor listed the car," she said, without preamble. "Posted it on 2 sites. Asking price is almost exactly what the loan balance was." Denise was at her desk at work, reviewing a claims file. She moved a sticky note from one column to another. "When?" "Day before yesterday, which means he probably got the paperwork the same morning you filed." Yolanda paused. "He's also out of the apartment. A mutual contact saw him hauling boxes into Patrice's driveway yesterday afternoon." Denise set down her pen. She thought about the apartment, the way Trevor had talked about that place, the address, the square footage, the building's proximity to his office, like it was proof of something, like where a man lived said something about who he was. She had never corrected that idea. She had just quietly been the one covering the deposit, the one whose name sat at the top of the lease. "He moved back in with his mother," Denise said. "He moved back in with his mother," Yolanda confirmed. Neither of them said anything else for a moment. "How's Patrice taking it?" Denise asked. Yolanda made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Her cousin Brenda called me. Apparently Patrice tried to spin the dinner as Denise making a scene. Got about halfway through the story before Malcolm stopped her and said he was there and that wasn't what happened." Another pause. Brenda said it got quiet fast. The Patrice news kept coming, the way water finds every crack. The family network she had used so carefully, the group chats, the holiday dinners, the slow, deliberate construction of a narrative about what Trevor deserved, had become the exact thing carrying the true story now. The same cousins who'd received her messages about Denise not lasting were the ones comparing notes. The same aunt who'd been told Trevor would come to his senses had been sitting 2 chairs away when Renata confirmed everything aloud. A family friend Patrice had invited specifically to witness the reconciliation called another family friend to say she'd never been so uncomfortable at a dinner in her life. That call became 2 more calls. Those became a quietness at Patrice's end of the family group chat that was louder than anything she could have said. Denise did not follow any of it closely. She didn't need to. It came to her anyway. The news about Renata came from a different direction. A contact at Trevor's company, the same one who had first told Denise how much Renata already knew, sent a short message about a week after the dinner. Internal review opened. Something about Patrice Wills and hiring influence. Renata's name is attached. Denise read the message once, set her phone down, and went back to her lunch. She had raised the concern. She had done it carefully, with documentation, through the right channel. She had never wanted Renata ruined. She had wanted the truth to have a paper trail, the same way the truth always did. The review, from what Denise heard, cleared Renata of any direct wrongdoing. Patrice's influence had been informal, enough to open a question, not enough to answer it in Renata's favor. What it left behind was a file with her name on it, a flag that would sit in a drawer somewhere, quiet and patient, attached to the promotion she'd wanted so badly. And Trevor, humiliated at the dinner, stripped of the car and the apartment and any version of the story where he was the reasonable one, had cut contact with Renata entirely within the first week. No explanation, from what Denise understood, just silence. Renata had gambled on a man who was going to leave anyway, and she had lost both the bet and the man. Trevor called on a Thursday evening, 2 weeks after the dinner. Denise was standing in Isaiah's kitchen, reviewing a lease document for her new apartment. She saw the name on the screen, let it ring twice, then picked up. "I just need 5 minutes," Trevor said. His voice was flat, careful, like someone reading from a script he hadn't fully rehearsed. "I think we gave up on something real. I think if we both just—" "Trevor." Her voice was quiet, not cold, just finished. A pause. "I made mistakes, I know that, but I didn't—" "I know what you did and what you didn't do," she said. "I documented all of it. You don't need to walk me through it again." Silence. "I'm not angry," she said. "I want you to understand that, but I'm done." He didn't say anything for a moment. When he did, his voice had lost the script. "Denise, take care of yourself," she said, and ended the call. She set the phone on the counter. She picked up the lease document and found her place on the page. Then she opened her contacts, found Trevor's name, and blocked the number. She closed her laptop. The last box was marked MISC in black marker, the way all last boxes are. Everything that didn't fit a category, everything she'd swept off surfaces at the end and packed without thinking too hard about. She slit the tape with her keys. Inside, a spare phone charger, a coffee mug from a conference 3 years ago, a small framed print she'd bought at a street market and never found the right wall for, a notepad, half used, with old claim numbers penciled down the left margin in her own handwriting. She set each thing on the counter and looked at them. Her counter, her kitchen, her lease in her name, paid with her deposit, in a building she had chosen herself because it had good light in the mornings and a parking space included and a property manager who answered his phone. She put the mug in the cabinet and the print on the windowsill and the charger in the drawer next to the stove, where chargers always ended up. The promotion had come 6 weeks after the dinner, not because of anything she had done differently. That was the part she kept coming back to. She hadn't changed her approach or raised her profile or asked for anything. She had simply kept doing what she had always done, reading the files closely, catching what others let slide, building cases from the ground up with patience instead of speed. The same skill she had been bringing to every room for years. Her director had called her in, slid a folder across the desk, and said the company had been watching her case closure rate for the past 18 months, and the numbers made the decision easy. 18 months. Which meant they had been watching while she was still folding laundry in Trevor's apartment, still planning birthday dinners, still being described as convenient on voicemail she wasn't supposed to hear. She had shaken her director's hand, walked back to her desk, and sent Yolanda a 1-line text. It happened. Yolanda had responded with 7 exclamation points and then called her immediately anyway. Yolanda still called too much, which meant she called every few days, which was exactly the right amount. She had come over the week Denise got the keys to the new apartment and walked every room with her wine glass in hand, asking questions about the closet space and the water pressure and the neighbors, in that order. She had opinions about where the couch should go. She had strong feelings about the kitchen lighting. She had made Denise laugh hard enough to sit down on the bare floor in the middle of the living room, neither of them with furniture yet, both of them not caring. She was coming over Saturday. She was always coming over Saturday now. Isaiah had helped her move. He had shown up on a Saturday morning with his truck and a hand dolly and 2 travel coffees, neither of which he had asked if she wanted. He had just brought them because he had been paying attention and he knew how she took it. They had moved everything in 4 hours. He had not offered opinions about the apartment. He had not told her what she should do with the space, or the walls, or the extra room she was planning to use as an office. He had set down each box where she directed and eaten lunch with her on the floor when they were done, both of them tired, both of them fine with the quiet. He texted her sometimes, not constantly, enough. She had learned, without either of them naming it, that some things don't need to be decided quickly to be real. She was fine with that. More than fine. Her phone buzzed on the counter while she was washing out the last box's dust with a paper towel. A calendar notification. Patrice birthday dinner, 7 p.m. She had never deleted it. She looked at it for a moment, the little bell icon, the address she had typed in herself, the restaurant she had researched, the reservation she had never canceled because she had left the apartment before she thought to. She dismissed the notification with her thumb. It meant nothing now. It was just a date. The calendar could have it. She poured coffee from the machine she had bought with her own money and stood at the kitchen window and looked out at the street below. The afternoon light was coming in at a low angle, long and golden, the kind that made ordinary things look significant. Parked cars, a woman walking a dog, a kid on a bicycle cutting a wide arc around a fire hydrant. Her phone buzzed again on the counter. She didn't reach for it right away. She took one more sip of coffee first. Then she picked it up. The name on the screen was Patrice Wills. She opened the message. Denise, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I hope we can put all of this behind us. I want you to know I never intended... She read it once, all the way through. Then she set the phone face down on the counter. She picked up her coffee with both hands, and she looked back out the window at the street, and the light, and the ordinary, uninterrupted morning that was entirely hers. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I've got 2 stories on the screen that you have to watch next. Have a great day!